It feels like 2008 all over again. The best way to protect your savings is with gold and silver. As the national debt soars past $34 trillion and the banking system wobbles, your financial well-being could be at risk. Precious metals like gold and silver hedge against inflation and dollar devaluation. They're perfect for diversifying your portfolio. With Goldco, it's easy. Get first-class service, step-by-step guidance, and a free wealth protection kit. In just 3 simple steps, you can roll over your 401k or IRA into precious metals, tax and penalty free. Todd Callender and I chose Goldco because they stand out with over 6,000 5-star ratings, an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, and a highest buyback price guarantee. Don't wait. Secure your financial future. Visit survival.gold or click the link below to get your free 2024 Wealth Protection Kit now. Government agencies have been weaponized against us. The Secret Service reacts too late. The FBI manufactures cases. The ATF targets our firearms, and the FDA screws us to drive big pharma profits. We must support Trump, who literally took a bullet for us, and back independent media like Survival Dispatch News. Now they're aiming to make Black Forest NMN a regulated anti-aging product to drive more profits for big pharma. NMN is the only over-the-counter supplement I've taken that's noticeably increased my energy levels, allowing me to work extreme hours. I've taken almost every OTC supplement over the past 42 years that I've been training, many of them as a world champion powerlifter. Get your NMN before it's too late. Buy 2, get 1 free. Click the link below. Stay alert, stay strong, and stay safe. And we're back. And we're going to switch things up a little bit this evening. I wanted to intersperse some of the learning content that we do that we normally publish off on its own on Survival Dispatch Academy. So for the time being, every episode of Survival Dispatch News until this election stuff is settled is going to cover the election. But before we cover the election stuff each night, we're going to do that small learning portion, as I refer to it. That's going to include things like prepping for grid down, comms down, network down, terrorist attacks, civil unrest, food supply interruptions, water shortages, EMPs, war. All of that stuff is going to be covered. Call it 10, 15, 20 minutes at the beginning of each video. When that's done, then we'll bring the live panel in. I've got Pilgrim James joining us tonight, as well as our in-house Intel guy, S2. So we're going to go ahead and get started right now with a segment that I shot earlier today with regards to putting together your get home bag. There's different ways of doing this. And I'm not saying that my way is necessarily the best or the right way, but what I do is I load the truck full of everything I could possibly need. And if I have to abandon the truck and find my way home, then I take what I need from the truck and put it in my bag. Because if I'm 5 miles from home, I don't need a tent. I don't need a sleeping bag. I don't need any of that stuff. If I'm 20 miles from home, I don't need any of that stuff. I'm going to hoofer all the way home in one go. But other people like Pilgrim James, we went through some of his stuff today, and boy, howdy, let me tell you, he is prepared, and his bug out bag is probably the most comprehensive bug out bag I have ever seen. We'll share that with you in another episode coming up before too long. But here we go. We're going to have a look at my get home bag setup. If you have questions, by all means, put them in the chat. I'll try to stay on top of it. If I don't get your question in the chat and you're a Survival Dispatch insider, go put your question in our Signal group, and we'll talk more about that as we get going. So here we go. On this segment of potential calamities we may face between now and January the 6th through this very tumultuous election cycle, we're going to be discussing get home bags. And the average American works 15 miles from home. And if there's a major catastrophe, let's say there's an EMP strike, not as likely as a terrorist strike or some sort of large scale civil unrest, you may have to walk home. And hopefully you're in good enough shape that you can handle that, because if you're not and you get trapped, especially in a downtown core, bad things will happen. So I'm not going to show you what the brand is on this black bag. I've used it for the past 2 years as my get home bag. Love-hate relationship with this thing. It's dark. It's dark inside. The compartments are not well organized, so it's constantly collapsing because of the just where all the pockets are. And normally, what happens with this is I get so frustrated that I can't find what I'm looking for. I turn it upside down, dump everything out, find what I'm looking for, and then I'm pissed off about it. And I stuff all the crap back inside. So it's always in a state of disarray. So I am upgrading from this black bag to this BLUETTI Handsfree 1 bag, which is very innovative. Number one, just from a construction standpoint for the bag, this is a really high quality bag. And I love how it has water resistant zippers on it, IPX4 rated, especially considering the fact that there is a power station in this bag. So these side flaps, they unfold. You can roll them back up again. And in this particular case, we've got two USB-C ports, two USB-A ports. We've got an input port if we're charging it with a solar panel. So the bag with the power station is $429. And if you add their unfolding solar panel, it's 120 watts. It adds $200 to the package, is $629. On the other side of the bag and the other side of the power station, we have an AC port out to plug something in like a laptop. And we have an input port here. So when we plug it into the wall, we can charge it up. We drained this thing completely, and it went from completely dead to 80% in 35 minutes. They advertised 45 minutes, so it was a little bit faster than that. If you're going to charge by solar panel, and we don't have the BLUETTI solar panel, but if you were going to charge by that, they give it 90 minutes to get to 80%. And if you're going to use a 12-volt carport in your car, closer to 190 minutes, if memory serves me right. Either way, very innovative bag from a number of perspectives. Having the power station built in is amazing. So if you work in the field with drones, you know how they just chew through batteries. So being able to charge your batteries while you're using a spare on your drone, big bonus. If you work in the field, so you have an outdoor office, for lack of a better term, you can charge your laptop probably at least 4 times off of the power station in this backpack. You can keep your phone charged up. It's just, if you need power on the go, especially in a get home situation where you want to make sure you have comms and hopefully your phone's working. In our case, we want to make sure that we have our satellite communicator, which is the Garmin InReach Mini, fully charged and accessible at all times. So if the cell network or data network goes down, we can still communicate with other InReach users by sending and receiving texts over the satellite network. I think we pay $12 a month for this. It was $3.99, $12 a month. Really good investment if you're concerned about things going down. So also on the outside, on the bottom, we've got the standard straps so that we can attach a sleeping bag to the bottom. We have MOLLE on the front. And here's something I like. A lot of times you'll see like half a dozen MOLLE strips across here. And it's not just an eyesore, it's a pain in the ass. It gets in the way. So in this particular case, I have this IFAC individual first aid kit that attaches to MOLLE, goes on here. At the far end of the table, you'll see the jump medic bag that we keep in our vehicle. And the reason they send the smaller bag with that big bag is that if you have to hoof her home on the Ankle Express, you can take what you may need out of the larger bag and put it in the small bag so that you not end up carrying a whole bunch of extra stuff that's kind of extraneous for you, especially if you can walk home in one day. However, you should always have the basics with you, like a tourniquet and some Band-Aids and those sort of things, some Narcan, which we'll discuss in a minute. So opening this bag up, one of the things that I really like is the use of see-through mesh. So unlike the other bag that I showed you, in this bag, I can actually see what's in each of these compartments. This strap here, of course, is meant to hold your clothes in place. Myself, I will use this to keep my laptop in place, but can't stress enough how much I like all of these mesh pockets so I can actually see what's inside the bag, each pocket. And this light gray is much easier to see than a black interior to a bag. Speaking of which, if you're concerned about EMP strikes, You can always use a Faraday bag like the one that I have at the end of the table on the chair down there, and you can put your larger stuff in there. You could put the power station in there. You could put your laptop in there, whatever concerns you. I personally don't think we have a massive risk of large scale EMPs, but that's just my opinion. Each to their own. This is a pretty nifty little Faraday bag that folds up, goes on your keychain, and you can put your phone in here. I can put the Garmin InReach Mini in there. So an extra layer of protection for those of you who are concerned over EMPs. The prospect of EMPs affecting the entire country are pretty much slim to none, but doomsday preppers have taught people otherwise. Again, you can ask our in-house bomb specialist, Mike Sterling. He'll tell you the chances of it happening are pretty slim. So moving to the main compartment here, I love these dividers because, as I mentioned with other bags, I can't see what's inside. It's black on black. I dump the bag. It's always in a state of disarray. If you don't like these dividers, they come out. Easy peasy, nothing to it. Myself, I don't want a large space like this with no dividers, because we're back to the same thing I struggled with the other bag and never being able to find what I'm looking for. The back compartment where the power station is pretty big. There's a Velcro shelf in it essentially, so that you can put stuff in here without it falling down into where the power station is. Comes with a couple cords. This is to charge from your regular wall port, and this is to charge from a solar panel. Again, this bag's $429. If you get the 120-watt solar panel with it, the price is $629. We didn't feel it was necessary for us at this particular point in time. That does not mean that we will not get one in the future. Again, I like the way that this bag is built with this support belt in place. Helps tremendously as far as the load on your shoulders is concerned. Also helps for us people who are, in our 50s with lower back pain and balance, and just keeping the whole rig tight to you. So can't say enough good things when it comes to the BLUETTI Handsfree bag. So I'm going to give you a quick review of the things that I have in my get home bag. Number one, pistol caliber carbine in a small form factor with a suppressor. You should never have to go deaf if you have to defend yourself. Some ammunition. I only use Pilgrim torch when it comes to 9mm, over 2,000 feet per second, actually 2,500 feet per second out of this PCC, 2,000 out of a pistol. Weighs nothing. It's unbelievable how light it is. And speaking of guns, so with the PCC, I pair that up with a Glock pistol. And the reason that I do that is, one, they're both 9mm, and two, they take the same Glock magazines. So whichever weapon I need to defend myself, I don't have to carry multiple different types of mags and different types of ammo with me. Got the bases covered there. Also, I like to have a holster on hand for OWB outside the waistband for open carry in an SHTF situation. I can draw faster from this than I can from concealed carry. I know lots of guys are really good at pulling from appendix. I don't wear appendix. I don't want to shoot anywhere near my groin, so I prefer to be at the 3 or 4 o'clock position. Should always have some less lethal options. So this is a Saber unit. It's got a quick disconnect from your belt or wherever you have it attached. And of course, we've got some pepper spray that goes with it, some spares, but you shouldn't always have to resort to deadly force. It's good to have less than deadly force. So as I mentioned, this is the bag from Jump Medic. I love it. And one of the reasons I love it is because when you unzip it, it unfolds perfectly. So here it is in a backpack format. Here it is unzipped. I don't have to dump anything out of this bag to find what I'm looking for. So I took another competitor's bag to a scene the other night ago because I didn't grab the right bag. And when I got there and realized that I had grabbed the bag from the other vendor, I literally had to dump everything out of it because I couldn't find it. It's a deal, man. It's an issue for people, especially for me. I want to be able to find stuff easy peasy. I like to add extra tourniquets. This tourniquet here is basically the line of thinking is, if you have the ability to put holes in people, you should have the ability to plug holes as well and stop them from bleeding out. Also like to carry Narcan in my bags. So in most instances, you're going to need 2 doses of Narcan to save somebody's life if they've been exposed to a fatal dose of fentanyl. And you can get Narcan for free from just about anywhere these days, because the problems with fentanyl are so prevalent. So I don't carry all of these in my bag. I typically carry 4. Those are just a couple extras that I had. As you noticed on the side of my bag, I had a bottle of water and tea. This is the Sawyer Mini. So this screws onto this bag so you can fill the bag up with water, and like contaminated water, whatever the case may be, and put this filter on it and then squeeze the water out of it into a container. I'll tell you what, Grand Thumb was a spec ops guy, SEER instructor, and he's the one who turned me on to Sawyer. He said that of all the ones he's tested, it was the one he liked the best. We've done tons of testing on this stuff. You can go back and watch the videos. There's a lot of shady people in this business, and their products don't do what they say they're going to do. Sawyer is American owned, American made, and has passed every single test that we've thrown at it. So this is a really good little system like this. Comes with a syringe as well, so that after you use it, you can flush it out. I don't typically carry that in my get home bag because I should be able to get home well inside of 1 day. Now, for some people, if you don't want to go to those lengths, you can use aqua tabs like this. Personally, I don't like to use these because they don't taste very good at all, and that's kind of an understatement. I like to have some wipes with me. These are combat wipes, a little bit stronger than your typical wet naps. When you need these, you'll be very thankful that you have them. I typically carry 2 flashlights. So these are both Ace Beams, by the way. They're my most favorite flashlight company. Why? Because all I have to do is push a button once on, once off, without, patting my belly, rubbing my head, and saying Hail Mary 3 times to get a dang flashlight to turn on. It's a major pet peeve of mine. Comms wise, this is a GMRS handset. Antenna comes off. If you want to throw this in a Faraday bag, not a bad idea. Again, the chances of a widespread EMP, though affecting the entire country, are basically slim to none. Good idea to have some tools with you. I always have a pocket knife on me, but I have an extra pocket knife here, Allen keys here, an all-in-one tool from Gerber here. I like to carry extra socks, and we've had some I guess young guys think that it's kind of funny that you would carry extra socks. They've clearly never been on a long hike when they got wet feet. Just ask any soldier who's served in a wet theater what they think of dry socks. It's kind of like the best gift you could possibly give them. And if you lose your feet, you're done. You're toast. I like to keep an extra t-shirt in there, microfiber rag, pen and paper so I can write stuff down. I like to carry a Sharpie with me so I can do permanent marker on things. So if I have to put this tourniquet on somebody, I'm going to write the time on it so that when that person gets attention from paramedics and doctors, they know exactly how long it's been since that tourniquet was applied. And with the Sharpie, of course, I don't have to worry about it wearing off. From a fire starting perspective, we've got some plugs here from Bigfoot Bushcraft. I have no official relationship with them, but they work great. I have a candle as well. I think that might be, no, that's Exotac. I thought it was Wazoo for a minute. Multiple different ways to start fires. I love these guys here from our friends at Enola Gay. You literally pull the end of that. This will set pretty much anything on fire. So I carry a couple of those to start fires. I have a plasma lighter, which is extremely effective. And I also have some waterproof matches as well to go with that. And I have a Fresnel lens. Worst case scenario, I could start a fire using the sun. And ironically enough, last year when this Fresnel lens arrived, I was in the front yard and I shone it on some dried leaves that were on the ground, set our front yard on fire, and had to move quickly to put that fire out. In addition to that, I carry extra readers. So these ones fold up. These are readers as well. I don't usually carry 2 different pairs. This is an extra pair of sunglasses. I already mentioned the Garmin InReach Mini satellite communicator. So if the data network is up and I send a message from this, it'll go up to the satellites, back down to you on the ground on a data network, but if the data network goes down, I can communicate with other family members who have an InReach Mini as well. Going back to the water for a second, by the way, it's a good idea to carry a Silcock key with you. This will open up the water supply to pretty much every commercial building out there, with a few exceptions. I like to carry ponchos. The reason there are two here is because I'm usually with my wife. So not only does this keep you dry, it's a good form of mini shelter as well. This is the power bank that I do not carry anymore. This is the tiny survival guide, and it comes with a Fresnel lens because the writing is so small, because there are hundreds, 242 tips and tricks inside here. This is really, really slick. We bought thousands of these and we're pretty much sold out. They're pretty popular. We were sent one that's a little bit more comprehensive from these guys here. This is an exceptionally good resource as well. So I carry one of each. And why do I do that? Because if I have to give one of these away, I can. That's a charging cable for the plasma. I like to carry ear protection with me. Again, there's no need to go deaf if you have to defend your life. Don't have to worry about it with the suppressor on the PCC, but definitely with the pistol, have to be cognizant of that. Excuse me. So I showed you I have a folder knife there. I usually have a pocket knife. This is a fixed blade knife. It's nothing special, but being fixed blade, quite a bit stronger. Then electronic wise, I like to have extra cables and batteries to charge all of my stuff and to make sure my flashlights are charged. And if I have any devices like optics that require batteries, I have them here. Both of those guns, as you can see, have optics on them. I have a phone charger to go with it. I could plug it directly into the BLUETTI by USB, or I can plug it into the AC port. And honestly, you know, we pack a ton of stuff into our truck for the reason that your get home situation may not always be the same. If it's always the same because you go from home to work, that's one thing. But if it's not always the same, I like to have the ability to pick and choose what I'm going to put in my get home bag. For example, if I'm 5 miles from home, I'm not carrying that power station. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to save the weight. I think it's around 9 pounds for the power station. And I'm only going to take what I absolutely need and have to have. I'm certainly not going to take a sleeping bag with me if I live within 15 miles of my destination and getting home. But at the end of the day, these are kind of the basics of a get home bag. This is the best bag we have ever been sent. And let me tell you something, we've been sent a ton of bags over the years. The BLUETTI Handsfree 1 with a built-in power station, 300 watts of output, 268 watt hours of battery capacity. It's got the enhanced zippers, the IPX4 water resistance. Biggest thing for me though is being able to see. I can see everything that's in these components. But that basically wraps it up. And we'll be covering another segment soon on how to be prepared for any calamities that pop up during this very crazy election cycle. We are back for real this time. As y'all can see, I've got James from Pilgrim Ammo here. And we've got our in-house Intel expert, SQ.
Chris, I'm the only one that's allowed to set my yard on fire. You're not allowed to do that anymore.
Let me tell you something. We had 2 episodes that happened around the same time. Our good friend, Denny Chapman, friends of James's and mine, we were sent this crazy solar panel that unfolded in like 4 different directions. It was like some sort of Chinese origami stuff. And somebody didn't read the specifications on it. Might have been me. And we plugged it into a big ass power station, and we had a mismatch in power. The power station was unharmed, but the solar panel caught on fire, and it was really dry, and it caught the front yard on fire. And that took both Denny and me to put out looking like a pair of idiots. The front yard. So.
Mine wasn't electronics related. Mine was I was burning trash out or burning leaves out in the backyard, and apparently I caught a root of a tree on fire. And I had made sure that I put everything out, at least I thought I did, but that root was left smoldering out there. Woke up the next morning and the backyard was on fire. I was out there in my pajamas with my garden hose putting the fire out.
Well, congratulations. Your story is better than my story. So I bow to the master. You win. All right. So as I mentioned at the beginning of tonight's video, for the foreseeable future, we're going to be covering what's the latest news as far as the election cycle is concerned for the foreseeable future. But not every episode, but as many episodes as possible, depending on how much time we've got. I want to front load these videos with some learning stuff. We went through James's bug out bag, and it is unbelievable. I'll probably put that on towards the end of the week. But all the topics I mentioned previously, we're going to cover that stuff. So if and when things go off the rails during this election cycle, we've done our best to dispatch information, because that's what our job is, right? Our job is to dispatch information so our fellow Americans and friends of America can survive in these very uncertain times. So
this is a prequel to that one, if you don't mind, Chris.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that I've got in my bug out bag. It's for the end of the world. So there's unconventional things, and you have to remember that bug out bag was built where there are no rules anymore. So, things like, I'll give away one, handcuff keys and lockpick sets. You're going to need stuff like that, because, there's all rules are out the window.
Yeah, 100%. So that'll be coming up soon, probably, like I said, towards the end of the week. As to you and I and John and Mike and Jeff, all of us should have a conversation, because, like I said, I want to get some of that learning information out. We typically publish it on Survival Dispatch Academy, which is any video that you see that has a green border around it. But I don't know that we have enough time to do enough of those during this election cycle. So that's why I want to, kind of feed it out there in bite-sized chunks, 10, 15, 20 minutes at the beginning of our regular episodes. So Mike Sterling is working out of town. I believe he's in North Carolina actually right now, helping the rescue efforts there before he carries on to Virginia for a job he's been working on there with a whole bunch of ordinances that, I believe, from World War II that were discovered, need to be disposed of. So since Mike isn't with us, I will do the conflicted question of the night. S2, don't let me forget to, circle back at the end of the episode. Pretty good at forgetting it. So here we go.
Forgot to take your NMN.
Yeah, no, we ran a Black Force NMN promo at the beginning of the video. That was the front bumper, so nobody has to listen to me talk about it tonight. But all right, here we are. Conflicted question. The collapse of infrastructure causes a war for resources that involves everyone in the country. As gunfights break out, the dead begin to pile up. Gordon has lost many of his friends, yet their families still lived. They wouldn't make it on their own. Not sure who Gordon is. I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that it's probably a character from one of the Angry American books, just a guess. If you were Gordon, would you embrace the families of your fallen friends and take care of them with your extremely limited time and resources? Or would you leave them on their own, and why? So James, S2, and I, we will give our answer to that question at the end of tonight's episode, but we'd like to see all y'all's answers in the comment section down below, whatever platform you're on, YouTube, Rumble, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. All right, update-wise, we've got live episodes tomorrow night, which is Monday night, Tuesday evening as well, usual time, 7 p.m., and then we have a pre-recorded episode on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. on Grid Down with Mike Bellamere from Switch It Up Inc. and EMP Pro. He's a master electrician. He's got a national footprint for his business. Kevin Harrington, one of the original Sharks from Shark Tank, is one of his backers. It's going to be a really, really good episode on Grid Down stuff. And one last thing, if you head on over to patreon.com/survival dispatch, we have free and paid memberships. Paid memberships are $9.99 a month. 50% of the content is accessible by everybody. The other 50% just the paying insider members. Insiders get access to our 24/7, 365 signal channel, and S2 has been cranking the information out there. Cranking out the information. Awesome job on that, by the way. And the process is that you sign up as an insider, you download and install Signal on your phone if you haven't already, then you send an email to support@survivaldispatch.com with your phone number and we send you an invite to the group. You cannot find the group. It's not searchable, and you have to have Signal on your phone already installed before we send the invite to you. Otherwise, it'll just bounce back. You also get our 228-page Essentials guide for free. It's normally $9.99. So all non-paying members, $9.99. Paying members also get 50% off all of our Survival Dispatch Insider e-magazines. I think we're up to 37 of them so far. You get behind-the-scenes content, early access to content, blah, blah, blah. So, and it helps support us. We put a lot of time and effort into Survival Dispatch News and all the videos you see from Jason Sawyer, JJ Morris, Bill Stoker, et cetera, et cetera. If you add up the man hours, it gets to be a significant amount of time. But again, we're in pursuit of our mission to dispatch information. So
Chris, I would like to add something about the Signal channel, please.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. So when you install Signal on your phone, you can also install it on a desktop or a laptop computer, and it will sync up with your phone. So you're not stuck with only one way of accessing it. You have one that's a mobile way, and you have one that's a stationary way.
Yeah, good. I appreciate you adding that, S2. And I'll add to it as well by saying that originally we were going to give paid members to a live after the live chat over on Patreon, but the Signal chat has grown a set of legs, a lot of interest in the past week since we launched it, and it's 24/7, 365. So the line of thinking when we switched gear from Patreon to Signal was that as long as the data network stays up, really good spot for us to give intel to our most loyal followers. However, what's happened in the past week, in addition to that, is the conversations that are going on are long, deep, and involved. And like I say, S2 and Mike Sterling have been doing a great job of fielding stuff in there and getting intel out to everybody. I went to bed the other night ago, and I think there was, I don't know, upwards of 100 and some odd messages, and I knew I wouldn't get to it, so I marked them as read. I woke up in the morning, there was another 100 messages. It definitely, it didn't turn out the way we thought it would. It turned out better than how we thought it would, and it's been a good addition for our insider members.
That was me posting stuff after you went to bed because I don't sleep.
Sleep when you're dead, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk Madison Square Gardens initially here. Big rally, Trump rally there today. I hope everybody's put a prayer in for Donald Trump that we don't see any type of terrorist attack this evening while he's on stage. I'm not sure if he's still on stage. I haven't been able to track it because we've been getting ready for this episode. But my concern is that, New York is a prime target for terrorism, number one. Number two, there are subway lines that run underneath Madison Square Gardens. There's a stop in Madison Square Gardens. I'm guessing that people smarter than me have probably stopped subways from going in and out of Madison Square Gardens as long as Donald Trump was on site. Maybe somebody else who knows better can speak to that. However, this is how things happen today. I won't play the whole video, but I wore this song out in the 80s. And, I was in high school in the 80s, graduated in 87. Started training in 1983, and we used to go to WWF events at the time, and all these kids would come up to us with pen and paper to get our autographs because we were big cement heads. And like I say, I wore this song out, and which is why I want to play it. Hulk Hogan's looking like he's got a few extra miles on him, but God bless him for being out there and still doing it. So let's catch the first part of how that went this evening.
Hogan! WrestleMania! Can you feel it, brother? Oh my God! Hulkamania!
So that song back in the day always got me fired up. And I hear it today. It makes me feel really, really proud to be an American. I don't know what it is about that song, but like I said, I wore it out when I was in high school.
You know what would make that complete? If Randy the Macho Man Savage came out there with him.
Oh man, I mean, when he died, that was brutal, right? I don't know if he had. I didn't see the final ruling on that, but I think that the coroner said something along the lines that he had a heart attack and crossed into oncoming traffic, and died in that. But yeah, it would have been awesome to have the Macho Man Randy Savage in there. I had the whole purple Macho Man shirt, and tank top with the face and the glasses and stuff.
I was right there with you.
55-year-old kid, basically, right?
I had the striped white paint glasses, sunglasses, and all that stuff.
I love it. That's awesome. I mean, S2, we just didn't recognize how good we actually had it when we grew up in the 70s and 80s. And in hindsight, of course, hindsight being 2020, things were pretty darn good back then, as far as I'm concerned. All right, so let's see what we've got up next. Actually, the first one I've got up is a meme, but it's a pretty accurate meme. It's not meant to be overly humorous. It is somewhat, but this is essentially the choice that we're looking at right now. So we've got Harris and the installed Biden admin right now that are pushing us towards socialist communist stuff. And thank God for Donald Trump. Thank God he was not assassinated, and thank God that he's pushing back. And I mean, the surge that's happening right now for Donald Trump is, I believe it's destiny. And I can't imagine the condition that we would be in if the assassins had succeeded. But on the other side of the equation, of course, we have this miserable old hag, Hillary here, who is trying to claim that Trump is reenacting his hero, Hitler's rally from 1939, which nothing could be further from the truth. I'm going to play a little bit of this video. I've got a link queued up. I don't know if you had a chance to go through them, S2, but James and I were discussing it. The number of Trump is Hitler broadcast this week just on mainstream media will make your head spin. They're trying so hard, and as I mentioned the other night ago, there's two types of people in this world: those people who elevate themselves by elevating everybody around them, and those people who elevate themselves by putting other people down. Good news is we have a choice of which bucket we're in, and the mental SSRI popping miserable people that support the Democrats are clearly in that second bucket where all they can do is talk about Trump, put Trump down to try and elevate themselves, and no sense of humor to go with it. All right, so let's listen to what Hillary has to say here.
And one other thing that you'll see next week, Caitlin, is Trump actually reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939. I write about this in my book. President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany. So I don't think we can ignore it.
All right, so we'll stop that there. I want to move to the next headline here because this number is astonishing. What do you think of that, S2? 5,500 stories on the
I believe it. I believe it.
And I think blitzkrieg is the right word. It's like a double entendre as far as them calling him Hitler. But here's another interesting post as well. I don't know if you had a chance to go through the whole brief or not, S2. And by the way, for our Patreon members, I always post the same brief that our panel uses over on Patreon before we start the episode, so you can follow along. You can read stuff at your leisure. Sometimes we cover all the links. Sometimes we don't have enough time to cover them all, but you get all that information, typically 6 to 10 pages long. So this cracks me up. Look at the list. It starts with Goldwater, then Nixon, then Ford, then Reagan, then George W. Bush, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, and here we are. Donald Trump apparently is the latest incarnation of Hitler as far as the Democrats are concerned. James, S2, you guys want to comment on this character assassination of calling?
I'm surprised they didn't have Daddy Bush in there too.
You know, and that's why I paused on that, because it threw me off, because I was waiting for, you know, Bush Sr. as well, but maybe they omitted him by accident or something like that. I'm not sure, but
Hillary being an old bag, she's got one set of balls to contain that much. It's kind of like the pot calling the kettle black,
isn't it? Which
well, that's what they do. That's what they do.
Exactly. You know, it's pretty much, if you want to know what the Democrats are going to do, all you got to do is listen to what they're accusing Trump of doing, because they're doing it all, everything, every last thing on there.
Well, we bring that down to Kamala. We bring that down to Kamala too. Okay, so there's nobody. She has lost most of her staff so far because she treats them like total garbage. And in fact, she had one staffer that was doing something, I forget what it was now, but she was yelling and screaming at her and calling her a fucking failure at her job and everything. And I mean, nobody can stand to work for her. So you want to talk about fascist? There you go.
Well, on top of it, I mean, how many jobs has Trump given people while he's been at a rally? There was some broad that he gave a job to in the middle of it, and some old ex-Navy vet as well that he created a position for him just on the fly. So while Camilla's firing people, Trump's giving jobs.
And my recollection is I read a story on this, but a while back, with regards to the attrition rate of her staff as the VP. And I want to say the attrition rate was 95%. If it's not 95%, it's a good 90%.
Yep.
Pretty crazy. So, all right, let's move on to the next piece here. We have got a ton of information to share tonight. Hopefully we can get through the bulk of it. So this is pretty interesting from the world of betting. 95% of all bets made last week were in favor of Trump winning. I mean, this is going to be an absolute shellacking as long as we do our part and we all go and vote and make this election too big to rig. We can't take our foot off the gas. We got to make sure that we all get our 2 cents in for sure.
I wonder what odds they give him.
That's a good question. I didn't look up the odds. I've seen
that they've changed now.
Yeah. So moving on from there, I don't know, S2, did you catch any of this Jake Tapper, JD Vance stuff?
Yeah. He's a freaking tool.
So we'll play this whole clip. It's a couple minutes long, but this is obviously not the entire interview. But JD Vance absolutely annihilates him. So let's check out the first part of it here.
Ask yourself a basic question about network integrity. You guys talked about the Russia hoax nonstop.
The FBI was investigating it. The FBI was investigating it. So we recovered them.
And so you took the words of unnamed FBI agents and put them on your network as if they were the gospel truth. You did it again and again. A viewer of your network would have believed that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin conspired in 2016.
No.
That was totally and preposterously false.
No.
Well, that's
what you just said is false. We covered an FBI investigation. I don't know why you want to talk about the FBI investigation.
You covered it in a way that gave credence to anonymous sources' accusations. You did it yourself. Your network did it, Jake. But again, can we talk about the issues that Americans care
I'm
most
talking about things that Donald Trump has said.
Yes.
If you have an issue with whether or not he's talking about the economy enough, that's between you and your running mate. I'm talking about things he has said this week.
Every single rally that he does, he talks about how he wants to unleash American energy so we can lower the cost of groceries. He talks about the fact that housing has become unaffordable. He talks about the wide open border, Jake. Kamala Harris and her allies, you know, it's interesting. Kamala Harris and her media allies, and I would put CNN in this category. You guys,
they wouldn't.
You guys seem to care.
I'll tell you that they wouldn't.
Well, they should watch your network more because you guys seem to care more about Donald Trump's past than the future of the American people. We're running this campaign on making the American dream.
I'm specifically asking about how Donald Trump is going to be president in the future should he win. And then we're being told
he's going to pursue economic policies that lower the cost of groceries and make life more affordable again. He talks about it every single day on the campaign trail, and so do I. What you're talking about is an anonymously sourced story or one guy
Nothing
who
anonymously
was, or
sourced.
who
Zero
one guy who was a disgruntled employee.
I told you
where
10
five other people pushed back against him and said that what he said was dishonest. So why don't we talk about the policy that's affecting American citizens and not what Donald Trump allegedly said, according to one guy who's pissed off because he got fired by Donald Trump?
The entire interview, he absolutely slays Jake Tapper. James, we discussed this a little bit earlier on with regards to how mainstream media can knowingly publish propaganda, right? Which Jake Tapper saying, oh, the FBI was doing an investigation. The CNN 24/7, all they could say was that Donald Trump was a Russian asset. They had no proof of it. The whole thing was made up. It was predicated on the Steele dossier that Hillary's campaign paid for. The whole thing was a steaming pile of shit. Those of us with more than 2 brain cells could figure that out, but the lemmings amongst us couldn't figure that out. And now they're trying to do a mea culpa. I mean, you're originally from Australia. You've been here 7 or 8 years now, and we love having you here. You are precisely the kind of people that we want coming to America. I mean, didn't your bullshit meter go off as soon as you heard this guy?
Yeah, it did. And again, the education that I get from some of you, the stuff that you source is a bit of an education for me, because I mean, coming from overseas, we're of the opinion, we that the media is honest, and if they get something wrong, you see the redaction in a printed media, as soon as they find out or they publicize that, okay, this is a redaction, we were wrong about this, so they can have accurate news. And you informed me that Barack Obama turned that on its head. So we've had over a decade of bullshit news, and there's no accountability. So you have to be first. You don't even have to be correct. You just be first.
You couldn't.
What's interesting about that is, James, you come from Australia, and when the 2020 election was stolen, one of the things that I latched onto immediately was Sky News Australia, and they were getting it right. Sky
News does, but when I was back in Oz in 2019, getting my visa to come out here, I'm not going to need that soon because I'll be one of your citizens. But there were other channels, not Sky News, but other channels, and there was an advert that would come on 4 times a night that would say a lot of the information that you are getting as news is incorrect. Okay, but Sky News seem to keep their finger on the pulse. But yeah, there were other channels like 9/7, like your non-pay channels, where this advert was coming out across all the channels 4 times a night. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, is this the Australia I've come back to?
When I saw that, like I said, I latched on to Sky News, and I'm like, how is it? And it was there was just such a discourse going on in my brain. It was like, how is it that our own media could not get it right? Even the so-called conservative media couldn't get it right, but yet an Australian news outlet could.
Yeah, pretty good, mate. But they're also the silent majority. Well, not so silent being a news network, but that they represent the silent majority in Australia as well, because there's a lot of people in Australia that are pro Kamala Harris and are very much against Trump. But when you ask them the reasons why they are against Trump, it's all to do with things that were just shit that was happening in the 80s and 90s.
Things that don't impact Australia, basically.
Exactly. But the thing is, I mean, like, you've got people in the UK now as well having pro-Trump rallies because they realize the knock-on effect of what is happening in America is having an impact on the rest of the world. And they want to get back to trading and getting back to being able to do business. So, it's funny.
Well, I put up a picture of Jake Tapper's boyfriend, by the way.
Yeah, I see that. The vast majority of stuff, though, that's broadcast in other countries is just straight up lies about Donald Trump. And it's the globalists at play. And our media didn't get it wrong. Our media did the bidding of their masters. Years ago, even 25 years ago, I used to say, best case scenario, our media was infotainment. Worst case scenario, propagandatainment. It is 100% propagandatainment now. No ifs, ands, or buts. And James, basically what Barack Obama did is he modernized the Smith-Mundt Act, which prior to 2012, required the American government and agencies of the American government to not broadcast propaganda domestically to Americans. So only use it in external efforts for whatever reason. When he turned that upside down, all the propaganda that is pushed out to the world by our government was then put on us as well.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this stuff, like I said, the Steele dossier proven to be complete and utter bullshit, paid for by Hillary. Anytime that this stuff comes up that's anti-Trump, 99.999% of it is either complete bullshit, fabricated bullshit, or you follow the money and it's somebody trying to torpedo him, right? So let's talk something a little bit more positive. This is a scene from earlier today in New York.
And what is your name? Danielle. And why are you here? Why are you here so early?
Oh my goodness, where else to be? And we're in New York City, Donald Trump, and we gotta make New York red again.
Is this your first Trump rally?
No, it's not. I went to the one in the Bronx as well. It was amazing.
Okay.
There's nothing like it, honestly. Look at this.
Yeah.
Come on.
Okay, so what's your name? Why did you want to come to this rally?
Christina, and I just love everything that Trump stands for. I think we need to make America great again, honestly, at the end of the day. And love
And
him.
when did you arrive?
I got here at like 12 a.m., honestly, maybe even like a little bit before then.
That's how excited you are to be here. You wanted to make sure you got good. What do you think it's going to be like inside?
Honestly, crazy, but everyone has been so kind, so it's honestly nice to have such a nice community of all these people. And I've been doing chants, and everyone always chants back, so it's been really nice.
Camaraderie, enthusiasm, the words of the day. What is your name? Tell me about you, why you're here, where you're from.
My name's Andy. I'm from Montgomery, New York, and I'm here because I'm looking for a better economy, and I want the borders closed. Trump,
Amen.
Trump, Trump.
So what do you think about the current state of the race? You say you're from New York. Are you noticing a difference in terms of enthusiasm? How do people feel about Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump?
I feel like everyone is very enthused for Trump and Kamala. I don't know. It's not good.
Not a whole lot of words to describe that. Got it. Okay, so what do you think about the state of the race, Donald Trump, and why are you here at this rally?
I mean, I'm here because I want Donald Trump to win. We have to keep the border closed, and we have to make America great again.
And what's the number one issue for you? What issue matters most?
I think for most people, myself included, would be the economy.
Got it.
Working class people have been hit the hardest by the Biden-Harris administration. And just like the republic that we have, it's our responsibility to replace those that aren't working for us. And that's what we're going to do.
So let's stop on that and discuss this for a minute. And let me just throw something out there that I've mentioned before, but it's worth repeating. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, James. I have to S2.
Right.
My personal belief is, and Trump's interview with Rogan confirmed a lot of my conclusions, that he was far too trusting of people in his first term and wasn't really good at identifying who the bad guys in the swamp were. And he ended up having to do a lot of stuff by executive order, executive memorandum. And my belief is that if he won the election in 2020, but if he had been recognized as the winner right now at this particular point in time, we would be looking at another bad administration cheating and getting in, something from the Obama surrogates. And we would see in January of 2025 what we saw in January 2021, where they would come in and just undo everything that Trump has done because he had no cooperation from Congress. Paul Ryan, the piece of shit traitor, was the Speaker of the House the first 2 years of his term. So what I'm getting at is I'm actually kind of glad we went through the past 3.5 years, because now Trump knows better. He knows that he's got to get meaningful legislation passed, knows that he cannot trust any of these bureaucrats, and he has the opportunity, God willing, we get him back into power, that he can make some changes that are permanent this time or very, very hard to undo. So I think we're going to be better off for it as long as we can get him back.
I think so too, mate. I mean, look, you got to remember he's the ultimate CEO. Okay, so you don't fuck around. Okay, as soon as someone's not doing their job, you fire them. And as you get further into any business, I mean, it's like when I joined the ammo business, I didn't know much about it. Okay, I was an oil and gas guy previously, but before that, I was doing security shit. You know, as you go on and the more times you do things, you get better at it. So I reckon this time around, he's, you know, and the thing is, he's worried about a good idea. Now, and I don't know if they have, but if there's been something good implemented from the last administration, he's not going to just wipe everything out. He's going to keep it if it's working and it's good as something positive for the people. Yeah. But he's going to fix things. Again, that's what a CEO does. And, you know, a lot of hardships that have happened over the last 3 years, they haven't been good. But I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, but also the first term that he was in, if they just would have just left him alone and let him do his fucking job instead of having to combat things all the time that were being thrown in, they were absolutely baseless. You know, leave him alone and do his job this time.
Well, here's the thing is that not only is he better educated and better equipped to make permanent lasting changes to improve our country, to make America great again, I think there's a significant portion of the American populace now who's also woken up to how crooked the establishment has been all of these years. My personal belief is that other than JFK and Trump in 2016, there has not been a legitimate election outcome since 1913, 1912. You know, Woodrow Wilson, I think it's been fixed ever since then. And that's why they killed JFK. That's why they've been trying to kill Donald Trump. And we have a chance to really and truly make America great again in the next 4 years. We just got to get through the next few months here. We got to get them elected, and we got to get them back into power without, you know, the bad guys assassinating them or anything like that. S2, do you want to weigh in on the benefit of Donald Trump as far as the experience of the past 8 years really for him?
Well, truthfully, I think if I had to look at things the way they've unraveled over the last 3 years, 3.5 years, I honestly think that some of the actions that were done in the previous administration of his administration were done on purpose. I believe that there were people that were put in places to bring them out of the shadows, because one thing that all of these people are is they're narcissists, and narcissists love to be in the spotlight. So the minute you shine light on them, it puts a microscope on them. And if I had to say it, just based on the way I see Trump operating and the way he's operated in the past, and knowing how he's operated as a private businessman, I believe he put those people in the spotlight on purpose. And that basically set off a firestorm that made everybody around the country that had any interest start looking at all of these people with a microscope and uncovering what their past is. The establishment's been crooked since the establishment of the Federal Reserve. That's
Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah. Ever since then. The other thing, I had a point that I was making about Sky News and everything prior to this, but one of the things that really gets under my skin is that these folks out there that lied about this Russia crap and everything else, they got fucking Pulitzer prizes for that shit. Yeah. And it was never taken back. It was never taken back. Oops, we found out it wasn't true. Maybe we shouldn't have got an award for that. What? An award for lying? That's all it is now.
Yeah, but I mean, they're all the people who are behind the whole participation trophy stuff. So, you know what I mean? They all got to give each other a pat on the back.
Yeah.
For the insanity. Anyway. Well, so this next one absolutely kills me. If you want to know how bad Kamala is, check this out. Archbishop. Kamala Harris is an infernal monster who obeys Satan. I mean... is that Viggiano? Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, if that doesn't put a fine point on it, I don't know what does. Let's show another picture from New York City this morning. There were crowds in every direction. I mean, he could potentially win New York. I would not be surprised to actually see him win a couple really big, Democrat states, and I don't even believe they're Democrat states, because I don't believe that we've had legitimate elections for a very, very long time. I don't believe that Dianne Feinstein was reelected 50 times and not once in her entire career held a campaign event. I don't believe it. I believe she was installed just like Biden was installed, for crying out loud.
Just going back, mate, I mean, you have to be a pretty bad human for the Catholic Church to be coming after you.
Well, Vigiano was excommunicated, by the way.
Ah, okay. All right. So who's he working for now? Still same Jesus.
Yeah, well, he's still working for the same God. Right?
He's working for the good Catholics.
Exactly.
Okay.
There you go. So this was obviously a little while ago, 4 hours ago or so, that the NYPD reported that Madison Square Gardens was at full capacity. Not surprised at all. And I'm not sure who this speaker is, but it caught my attention for some reason, and that's why I put it in the brief. But let's have a listen to this.
It is so important that you drag every like-minded family and friend. Grab your grandma, grab your brother, grab your sister, your neighbor, and drag them to the polls. You are part of the greatest comeback story in history because one man has refused to back down. In the last 4 years, we have witnessed the destruction of this once great nation. We have seen countless criminals cross our borders. We have seen our economy crippled. Prices are out of control. Ask yourself, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Ask yourself, can you afford 4 more years of Kamala Harris?
So clearly the answer to that is no. And let me give you a prime example of how hard hit some of us are. Home insurance in Florida for the longest time, for an average home was going to be somewhere between, say, $800 and $1,500 per year. Our home insurance is $5,000 a year now.
Jesus Christ.
It is absolute insanity. Food. So again, depending on whose numbers you want to believe, the numbers I believe and that I've seen is 31% year over year compounded inflation on food. I see people coming out of the grocery store now and they've got a handful of bags when they used to come out with heaping buggy sort of thing. And I know when we go shop, we see the same thing. I saw somebody the other day ago was commenting how they used to buy like a 6-pack of sodas and it was like $1.99 or something when Trump was in office. And now it's $9.99.
Well, again, when I first got here, 2018, it was costing me around about $100-120. Okay, and that would last me for about a week. Now it's costing me $350.
Unreal.
And my diet hasn't changed.
Yeah,
dude. I remember back in the 90s, you used to be able to go down to Piggly Wiggly and you could spend $35 and get groceries for a whole month.
Well, have you seen some of the comparisons from people that have just bounced from America and they're living in the UK, they're living in Slovakia, they're living in places like that. Okay, and a week's worth of groceries is like $30.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Well, do you guys happen to remember what the number was when Tucker Carlson went to Russia and went to the grocery store and loaded stuff up and then compared it to what the cost was here?
I didn't see that.
It was pretty phenomenal. I think a lot of people were surprised at how modern Moscow is in general and how clean it is. Subway's super clean, grocery store super clean. But just the point I was trying to make is that whatever he spent there on groceries converted to our money was a fraction of what it would cost here.
And he's made it easier for people from the UK, Australia, and America to immigrate there. You can go there on a visa for a year, check things out, and if you want to become a citizen, they've opened up the floodgates for that as well. Now it would have to get a lot worse here for me to consider doing that. But at the end of the day, I personally wouldn't be against it.
So Russia is the second largest Christian country in the world, second to us. And
you see what we did to those Muslim guys that opened fire, and people were screaming out when they were dragging them into court. These people have obviously been beaten. Of course, they've been beaten. You're in Russia.
Well, yeah, but I mean, as far as like Christianity is concerned, Vladimir Putin and his government is very, very much against, the transgender stuff and those sort of things. And as far as Putin's concerned, he said multiple times that he believes that our government is being run by Satan. And I frequently have said, for many months now, that I believe that our government's under the direct control of our enemies. The crazy thing is that I feel that I have more in common with Vladimir Putin's values than I do with anybody on the left here. And, this might sound kind of silly, but, growing up in the 80s, seeing Rambo First Blood at the drive-in theater was the reason I got into lifting weights. I was 125 pounds soaking wet. I told my buddies I'm going to look like Sylvester Stallone, and went into football camp the next year at 210 pounds. And the rest
you got bigger arms than him now.
The rest is history. But what I'm getting at is Rocky IV. I swear to God, I've seen Rocky IV over 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And that was my thing, right? So when I got to compete against the Russians and, powerlifting world championships, that's all I could think in my head was, Rocky IV, Rocky IV, Rocky IV. So I'm part of that Cold War generation that was raised to think that America is the greatest country in the world. And we are. Boy, howdy, we're on the verge of losing it. And, doing battle with Drago and the Russians. And I would have never believed anybody if they had told me the 80s, 90s, even 10 years ago, that I would say that I have more in common with Vladimir Putin's family values than I do with our government here. And that's God's honest truth. I mean,
I couldn't agree with you more. And if you've seen some of I think it was in an airport or something like that, some obviously very tall, very heavily made up tranny was being silly in an airport, and somebody was giving him a ticket, and she'd ripped it up and was stilettos up to here and threw this thing away and was prancing around the place. And then the obviously internal airport cop just went over and punched her in the face and arrested her. I was just like, well, that's okay. And I'm not for police brutality.
Neither are we.
But you had cops back when you were growing up, and even as far forward as when me growing up. I mean, there's about 10 years between you and me. There was a cop that I knew there was a reason that I joined the Navy. Okay, if he gave you a boot in the arse or he smacked you around the head, you didn't think, okay, well, can I get that on camera and get him into trouble? You 9 times out of 10, you thought, actually, I fucking deserved that. And you smartened up, okay? And you had that more rapport between police. Now, granted, there are some fucking idiot cops out there, but, it came down to recruiting and the cops having the right support and the right everything. So
I don't think it matters what the topic is, what the group is. There are always going to be outliers, right? So my personal belief, and John Wheaton and I have discussed this, is that the vast majority of people are good people, but there's always a handful of those outliers. And, I believe far and away the vast majority of law enforcement officers are good people. And, when I grew up and you were going to a party underage, I used to do the driving most of the time because I've never been a big drinker, but there'd be, cases of beer or whatever, whiskey in the back, and the cops would pull you over and they take it away and say, don't do that again. And that was the end of it, right? There wasn't, at the level that it's at today. It was definitely a very different point in time here and was a better time. But moving on from there, let me see what the next one is. So this is pretty impressive. And this echoes what I've been saying frequently on Survival Dispatch News. This is what the real numbers look like as far as the support out there is concerned. Right. And this is actually a little bit on the low side from some of the private polls that I've seen conducted, which are showing 70% on average, give or take, in favor of Trump, and the ballots in favor of Harris. These polls that are saying it's 1%, it's neck and neck, all they're doing is trying to sell the steal, right? So if they steal enough votes and Kamala wins, people can say, well, the polls did say it was kind of close, but it's not even close. As long as we all get off our ass and do our duty and go vote between now and November the 5th. And, some people are going to say it's better to early vote. Some people like me say it's not. I think the earlier you vote, the more chance there is that something gets, messed with as far as your vote's concerned. Whereas if we all go on November 5th, they will not have the same opportunity of time and less supervision to mess with people's votes. But at the end of the day, this is the reality of the situation, and I'm convinced that they're well aware of it inside the Harris campaign. So let's move on to the next one. Here's another part of JD Vance here with regards to the total gong show at the border. And by the way, Mark Cuban, he must have done some really bad things to be out there as frequently as right now, beating up on Trump and in favor of Kamala Harris. They must be holding something terrible over him. But he said that what happened at the border is that Joe and Kamala had big hearts.
Fuck off.
And so they opened the border because they had big hearts, and then it just got away from them.
I hate to be too Australian, but
They mistake hearts for farts.
94 executive orders on Joe Biden's first day to dismantle 94 measures that Donald Trump had put in place to protect our country and our border. And right now, the polls are showing, depending on whose poll, 70-80% in favor of mass deportations. I would have never believed you would have seen a number that big. And actually, before I play this video, I want to back up and say one thing. When you see the video or the polls, pardon me, that say it's a neck and neck race, you need to click through to the original source of the poll, and then you need to scroll to the bottom of the fine print. You need to click the link for the criteria that was used for that poll. And what you'll discover is instead of 40% Democrats polled, 40% Republicans, 20% independents, what you'll find is 60% Democrats polled and 20% Republicans, 20% independents. And let me be perfectly clear. Republicans, Democrats are two different sides of the same coin. And it just so happens that most of us who are Donald Trump supporters, who are MAGA, are Republicans because that's the party he's running on behalf of. But if there was no Republican Party tomorrow, I would not be upset, and neither would anybody else who supports the MAGA movement. But that's the long and the short of it, how these polls come out with these bullshit numbers. But let's see what JD Vance has to say with regards to 445,000 violent criminals being let into our country by the Biden admin.
Problems. I hate to say this, man, but I think the reason why it's so bad is really because of our failed current leadership. When Kamala Harris became vice president, she was appointed the border czar. They bragged about suspending deportations. They bragged about stopping construction of the border wall. They bragged about expanding what's called catch and release, where if somebody comes into our country, they claim asylum, they're released into our country rather than having to wait in Mexico while that asylum claim is processed. That has encouraged this massive increase in illegal immigration. Now, of course, a lot of those folks are good people. They just want to work. Now, I think they should come through the proper channels, but I've got nothing against them personally. But when you open up the border that way and lead to that level of chaos, you're going to get tens of thousands of, unfortunately, pretty hardened criminals who have come into our country. And I think the number that I saw recently, Chris, is approximately 425,000 violent criminal illegal immigrants are in the United States of America right now. That's double the size of the United States Marine Corps. I mean, I served in the Marine Corps for 4 years. It's hard to even imagine twice the number of U.S. Marines that we have are illegal immigrant criminals in this country. And we just got to get back to deporting people who shouldn't be here, finishing the border wall, just enforcing our immigration laws would make so much of this problem go away.
All right. So before the two of you comment on this, I want to say something. So James, originally from Australia, he came to America vis-a-vis, a stint in Singapore, and the money he has to spend and the hoops he has to jump through to be American are unbelievable. But we let these invaders come across the border and we do everything for them because our government is clearly under control of our enemies. It's a complete abomination at the end of the day. We should be bringing people into America who bring something to the table, like James. He's created millions of dollars of revenue with his company, Pilgrim Ammunition, and he's got other companies, a cigar company, and so on and so forth. I just want to state for the record here, this is who we should be welcoming to our country, not criminals from the Venezuelan prisons and those sort of places. And S2, I'll pivot to you because I want James to have final word on this particular point.
Well, the thing that's appalling to me about the illegal immigration, we take countries, and I'll use, James can keep me honest with this one too. When you go and you want to get a visa to go live in Australia, you have to prove that you can support yourself there for at least 2 years independently of your job. I mean, you got to have money banked. And I think we need to, and there are other countries that are like that too. Yet we just let every Tom, Dick, and Harry walk across the border. We hand them an EBT card. Then I've heard that these EBT cards are giving them have upwards of $30,000 loaded on them. What the fuck?
And in addition to that, the Aussie government deport quickly.
Yeah,
really,
exactly.
Oh yeah, they deport real quick.
So why the question I have is, why have we never done that here?
Well, you were doing it under Trump, weren't you?
I heard tell of something along that. I was reading something the other day where
the proof of the financial.
Yeah.
Mate, look, at the end of the day, you know, it is something that I can see the benefit of it. But I mean, even when I came over here, you know, I don't know. I mean, depends on how you wanted to live. I don't know whether I would have been able to show that I'd be able to support myself without anything else for 2 years. I don't know what that threshold is. But I just got over here and worked hard, and that's the benefit of coming to America. Everyone will give you a go so long as you're willing to work. And networking is very easy here, and then it comes down to your experience of, you know, finding good contacts and getting. I usually say that it takes about 5 years to get in with the right people in your circle, because you're going to kiss a lot of frogs. You know, as you get better at doing things, and I've lived in a few different countries, once you get your network right, then it comes down to hard slog and finding the right relationships to get it done. So, you know, I do see the benefit, and I do know that why Australia does it. But here, the fact that they don't do it, you know, I think it may take away. I mean, I see the benefit of it. But what the downfall, I think, is because they've been just open slathering it and not looking at the background checks. They've just been letting people through the gate. You know, when I came here underneath my visa, they did background checks, and that's why it took them, you know, a year to grant me my visa. Okay, because they were going in everywhere that I've lived, and I had to show them every page of a lot of different passports.
I told James a couple years back, I said, you know, just go to Mexico, learn how to speak Spanish, get a tan, walk across the southern border. You'll be good to go. You'll get amnesty. You'll get citizenship. You get a free phone. You get the EBT card. You get free healthcare. You'll get it all. Just pretend that you're one of them.
Yeah, and the reason that I haven't done that is purely because I'm assuming that as soon as Trump gets into power, he's going to be doing mass deportations, and I don't want to be one of them. I got too much of a business footprint now, made some great relationships, built a home. I'm staying here to build up this company further.
So when we participated in the Border 911 fundraiser, right, they needed to raise $1.2 million in 4 weeks. And we raised about $350,000 for them. So we got an invite to the gala. And when Tom Homan stood up to speak, so Tom, over 30 years law enforcement, Trump's director of ICE, he said to everybody, he said, first day that Donald Trump's back in office, we're going to deport all of the Democrats. And the second day, we're going to deport all of the illegals.
Well, the Democrats keep saying they're going to leave the country if Donald Trump gets elected. I have yet to see anybody make good on that promise.
Nobody's ever fucking done that.
No, it's all a bunch of hyperbole, right?
Yeah.
So let's have a look at this next video here.
Even Bob.
But let's talk about who did he deliver this news to? To Jeffrey Goldberg, a guy who lied the United States into the Iraq War, which led to the deaths of millions of innocent Arabs and thousands of innocent Americans. You don't go to that guy if you don't have a particular ideological motive. I think that's what's going on. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to say that I'm wrong.
I think it's interesting that you think that a magazine writer lied the American people into war.
Well, he encouraged it. He wrote stories that were dishonest.
He wrote a story about the gassing of the Kurds in I forget if it was the Atlantic or the New Yorker, but I'm actually referring to John Kelly talking to the New York Times.
He wrote stories, by the way, where he took what intelligence officials in the American Pentagon bureaucracy said and wrote it as the gospel truth. And this highlights.
So I got to stop it there. That's exactly what changed when Obama updated or modernized the Smith-Mundt Act. Okay. So prior to 2012, that sort of scenario where somebody in the intelligence community essentially handed over this fake story to the press, that had to be disclosed prior to then. But now they can say whatever they want, do whatever they want. And we've seen where that propaganda.
Yeah, they've legalized propaganda
against Americans. Correct.
It's the entire point that I'm making about Trump's foreign policy is this is a guy who wants to use American troops sparingly. He wants peace through strength. It's why his foreign policy was so successful during his first term. It's all the same people who were wrong about Iraq. They were wrong about the quagmire in Afghanistan. They were wrong about Syria. They were wrong about everything. And now they're coming after Donald Trump.
All right. So a couple more quick things, just because we got a lot of ground to cover. And if we don't speed things up a little bit, we'll be here all night. So this is an Obama appointed judge in Georgia. I think this one was Georgia. Yeah, it is. That is allowing basically non-citizens, Virginia. She's allowing non-citizens back on the voter rolls because Youngkin basically took them off and blah, blah, blah. All I'm trying to make here is that this is an activist judge, again, under the direct control of our enemies. There's no other explanation for it. And here's another one. So this is the guy from Georgia. I have my two states mixed up there, who basically allowing the same thing, people to be on voter rolls that shouldn't be on voter rolls. Again, there's no way to explain this other than our government's under the control of our enemies. So with that being said, and we could beat that topic to death, I do want to try and speed things up a little bit. So let's have a look at what's going on in Chicago right now. And this is a good video.
Here's what's happening in Chicago. You've given us no choice. We got to go to the federal level. We got to go to Donald J. Trump because he's made it clear what he's going to do. This is America. You bringing these people over here that's from socialist countries and all this and that, and y'all think y'all going to run that here. Black America said, no, you're not. The true white Americans are saying, no, you're not. The true Latino, the true Asians are saying, no, you're not. I'm telling you, Brandon Johnson, from my heart to yours, Trump 2024. No more blue, no matter who.
So let's stop on that. So you've got a demographic, especially Cook County, Chicago, that has been diehard Democrats for as long as I can remember. When you start seeing that sort of thing from the Democrat strongholds, that's why we're all predicting that this is going to be a tsunami of votes for Trump. They're not going to be able to cheat their way out of this as long as we all do our part and go vote by November the 5th. But that's very, very telling. You wouldn't have even seen this in 2020, let alone 2016 and earlier.
Yeah, but I think, the different demographics have really seen how the country has changed. Okay, they're paying more at the grocery store, they're paying more at the pump. Okay, and the only thing that makes sense on why is the leadership.
Yeah.
So they're pissed off. Okay, and they, my dear old mother, she hated Trump. And explaining to her that you may hate the guy, but how many bosses have we all hated at one time or another? We've hated him because he's doing a job. And being in a leadership role with my companies, sometimes you can do shit that's just better for the company. So it doesn't matter whether you hate the guy that's in charge. if he's doing his job well, that's what you need.
There's a big caveat here, though, right?
Yeah.
Is that the left and their mouthpieces in the media have continuously lied about Donald Trump over and over and over. So you take people who believe that crap and then finally met Donald Trump and have gone and said, boy, did I ever make a mistake. He is nothing like what he was portrayed to be. And he's just a really good, solid dude. And it's that shift in Chicago is very telling because they're starting to figure things out on their own. I don't mean the blacks. I'm just talking all these different communities that typically in the past would have supported the Democrats no matter what. They're figuring it out because of things you said, their food bill, they can't afford their insurance. Car insurance is skyrocketed as well. But when you add up all that stuff, and the plural of anecdote is not data, I know that. But when you start adding those types of speeches up, those anecdotal examples, it's pretty easy to see why they're in a total state of panic on the Democrat side and why this will be a landslide and why the election will be too big to rig as long as we all do what we need to do and get out there and vote. S2 comments on the traditional Democrat voting blocks coming to their senses.
Yeah, I think they're getting more. So those demographics generally have been low information voters. They simply vote because that's the way my mama voted, that's the way my grandma voted, and that's the way her mama voted. And what they're starting to get now is they're starting to get information that's been suppressed by mainstream media. For instance, two of the biggest things that Trump did, and I'll use the black community as that example, he funded HBCUs, historically black colleges, for perpetuity. So, which means that they were going to get funding from the federal government where they weren't getting anything before. And God knows Obama didn't do shit for them. He took stuff away from them, actually.
Right.
And then you've also got the prison reform stuff that he did, where he enacted the First Step program that enabled people that were first offenders or nonviolent offenders to be released from prison. The very same people that Harris put there. So they're starting to, now that they're getting this information out there through alternative means, they're starting to say, hey, wait a minute, we've been lied to. And they're right.
Well, and I think a really big factor in this is that you have a lot of people, much like us at Survival Dispatch News, that are able to get the word out to the masses now, partially because Elon bought X and loosened the reins on free speech, but also because there's kind of like this cottage industry of people like us, independent news, whatever you want to call it, that's not beholden to the powers that be, and that we're not just going to parrot whatever propaganda they tell us to parrot. I have a link somewhere in this brief. I don't know if we'll be able to get to it time-wise or not, where Elon basically says, this is the age of citizen journalism, and the mainstream media, they don't know what to do, but they're not getting the traction that they did before because other people like us are getting the truth out.
Yeah, and a lot more opinions out there, and a lot of people are substantiating their opinions, giving reasons for their opinions. So, I mean, yeah,
you would think you would think that if mainstream media is seeing this, the Murdochs of the world and everybody else, if they're seeing this going on, you would tend to think that, hey, maybe we better change our tune and get back to what we were supposed to be doing in the first place. But no, they're still continuing on with their line of bullshit. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, it does, because they're beholden to the powers that be, right? So ever since Biden came into office or shortly thereafter, American corporations have had historically low liquidity, and they need liquid funds to pay their employees every week and pay the employee benefits and pay the electric bill and so on and so forth. The vast majority of American businesses run on lines of credit. The lines of credit that are through our banking system are essentially controlled by the Rothschilds and the people at that level. And this is also where the whole ESG DEI crap comes from, in that if you have a low score on the ESG side, then you have to pay higher interest and you can't get as much money. And so they become financially beholden to the globalists, the cabal, whatever you want to call them. And it's a matter of financial survival for them. And I mean, look, how much did Fox settle with Dominion, for crying out loud? And Fox was telling the truth, but basically they either backed off on that and stayed to fight another day or got put out of business. So again, we've got to stop thinking in terms of Fox, CNN, MSNBC as being traditional old school mainstream media. They're not. They are a paid branch of the machine. They are the cabal. They are the propagandist. And that's all there is to it. The rules of the game have changed, and people are starting to see through it. I mean,
then ultimately they're going to die. That's it.
Yes, they are. And I don't have any answer to this, but more than once, S2, it's crossed my mind. Is there a way for these traditional media organizations to latch on to this whole citizen journalist thing and make it succeed? Let me give you a great example. One of the most watched people out there, bar none, is Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson was let go by Fox because, again, the people who control the purse strings said, get rid of him. And that's on a very high scale. You can bring it down a notch. Just look at Dunkin' Donuts a few months ago, going to Elon, X, and all the other social media companies and say, you need to take Alex Jones, Sheldon Crowder, and all these guys off your platform, or we're not going to advertise with you anymore. And of course, what did Elon do? He published a letter and said, here you go.
Fuck you.
Donuts is up there, right?
No, he said,
exactly.
he said, fuck you.
Yeah, he did. And God bless him for doing that, right?
Well, that's what Dana did, Dana White, when they exactly, he just said, don't fucking tell me what to vote, what to think.
Dana White, so my recollection of that story, and there's more than one that involves him, but the best of one of them all was Dana White posted something on his personal Facebook page, and one of their sponsors at UFC called him at home at night and said, you need to take that post down right away. And Dana went off and said, fuck you and the horse you rode in on. You don't tell me what I post on my personal page. And the person said, well, we're going to pull all of our money. And he said, fine, take your money. Fuck off. I'm not doing it. Yeah. And thank God we have men of character that are stepping up and saying stuff like that, because
what kind of stupid idiot would say? I mean, he is known for shooting it straight and not giving a flying fuck. Like, why would you think that because you're giving him money that you could tell him what to do?
Because it works with everybody else.
Oh, well, right? Everybody else.
Like, that's the paradigm that we live in today, is that the people with the deep pockets give copious amounts of money to people like Dana White that have a venue that has lots of eyeballs, and then turn around and say, well, we'll cut the money off if you don't play by our rules. And thank God we've got enough people standing up and doing the right thing. I mean, Elon has lost billions on X, and he will go down in history as probably saving our country, if not saving the entire world. There are still problems with X. I've been suspended 3 times this year.
Really?
And recently too, and it's complete bullshit. Each time it's been because I've quoted a law that said, if you're charged with this crime, you're convicted of this crime, you get this particular punishment. And we're talking capital punishment. And I get shut down. I get suspended because I'm guilty of fomenting violence for quoting our laws. Whereas all the purple and blue-haired freaks can run around and say that hopefully the next assassin has better aim than Crooks did, and those sort of things, right? So there's still some code under the hood at X that's very woke and very
get under that, Elon, sort it out, mate.
And hopefully he makes that better. But I had a post yesterday, I can't even remember what the gist of it was, where I got a warning just like that saying that my post had been suppressed. It was a picture of Michelle Obama. It said, describe Michelle Obama in 2 words. I said, tranny dude. You asked for my opinion in two words. Those are my 2 words, and that got us.
How can you be shut down for putting out an opinion?
Well,
what happened to freedom of speech?
Well, freedom of speech only applies to the government, public spaces, as far as the First Amendment's concerned, but also, as S2 has pointed out many, many times, Section 230 of the Internet Act from 1996 basically grants them carte blanche to do whatever the hell they want, and we need to repeal that and get that changed. And that's another topic for another episode of Survival Dispatch News. But Laura Loomer has been putting together a bunch of documentaries, and this is, I believe, a snippet from one of them that shows the scale of the demographic change in our country. And it's almost, like she says here, hard to fathom. I don't know that we'll play this entire video, but we'll play a portion of it.
1980, 524,000 immigrants were admitted into the United States. The total population of foreign-born residents at that time was 14 million. In 1990, the number of immigrants admitted increased to 1.5 million. The total immigrant population rose to 19.7 million. In 2000, 841,000 immigrants entered the country, but by that time, the dam had broken. In the preceding decade, at least 600,000 immigrants entered the country each year, and the total foreign-born population that we could account for increased 57%, reaching 31 million. This trend only grew throughout the next decade. From 2000 to 2010, there were only 3 years where less than 1 million immigrants were allowed to enter our country. By the end of the decade, the total immigrant population was said to have numbered around 40 million. However, an estimated 17.5 million illegal immigrants also entered the United States during this time. In 2015, over 25% of the United States population was either an immigrant or a descendant of immigrants. Due to changes in methodology where certain studies exclude naturalized foreign-born residents from the foreign population and challenges posed by our inability to track emigration and deaths of illegal migrants, the true number of immigrants residing within the United States of America remains an elusive statistic. From 2011 to 2022, 27.5 million immigrants entered the country legally. During the same time, at least 9 million illegal migrants also crossed our borders. Before 1930, the vast majority of immigrants to the United States were of European descent. Between 1820 and 1930, over 90% of the approximately 33 million immigrants who arrived in the United States were from Europe. The largest groups came from countries such as Germany, Ireland, Italy, and the United Kingdom. Today, over 94% of all immigrants entering the United States last resided in Africa, Central or South America, Asia, Mexico, the Middle East, or the Caribbean. These statistics do not account for the incalculable number of illegal immigrants entering the United States of America every single day.
So let's stop on that and discuss this. So as Laura Loomer indicated, in the past, the bulk of the immigrants coming to America were of European descent or from a European origin. And these are people who brought skills with them. They were skilled tradesmen and artisans and built this country essentially. But what's happened in recent decades has been the importation of people from third world countries. So if you take that into account, plus the fact that when I was younger, and you wouldn't have seen this, James, being from Australia, but I know S2 did, is every Saturday morning during the cartoons, we had Schoolhouse Rock, and there were all these lessons, right? So this is how a bill becomes law, so on and so forth. And one of the things that was covered every single Saturday morning was America being the great melting pot. Mm-hmm. So when you come to America, you become part of American culture, you celebrate American culture, and you're proud to be American. And that has gone out the window to the point where even our own children who've been born and raised here have not been taught that this is a melting pot. They've been taught that we live in a cultural mosaic of all these different cultures. There's not one instance in history where diametrically opposed cultures have been able to inhabit the same spot and get along.
Yeah, but it was the same thing in Australia at the same time frame. You know, you had a lot of Italians, a lot of Greeks, and they all came to Australia. Where I grew up, you know, in the country, there was heaps of Greeks and heaps of Italians. And now all of them, they were still Italians and Greeks, okay, and they did things slightly differently, but they were still bloody Australian. Yeah. And they weren't trying to push back against Australian ideals. Okay, they just to be honest, had better food. Okay,
right.
You know what I mean? Like
That's funny.
they cook some really, really good shit. But I mean, they're all proud to be Australian, although they didn't let go of their original culture. Now, it used to be the same here, but now it seems that if you're just flat up American, the other side's condemning you, particularly if you're a white male.
Well, again, our government is clearly under the control of our enemies and is teaching Americans that white males are the devil incarnate and we're responsible for all these bad things, when in reality, the exact opposite is true. But you also have these heavy concentrations. So Somalis in Minnesota, Minneapolis in particular, a lot of Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan, to the point that 20 years ago, I've told this story before, so I'm not going to get deep into it, but I got lost on my way to the Ford campus and had a cop say, I was looking for the Ford campus and the Ritz-Carlton, and I ended up in this parking lot. Anyway, this cop guided me over to the Ritz-Carlton. He said, don't come in here. Like this is not for white people in here. You're putting your life at risk. And that's 20 years ago. So were there dangerous places when I grew up? Yeah, of course there were. But we didn't have all of these, isolated groups that, are pushing for things like Sharia law in America, right? And I personally believe that we need to pass a whole slew of laws, which Todd Callendar and I are going to get into here on Survival Dispatch News and Truth Be Told. And one of them is it needs to be in writing at a federal level that Sharia law is illegal in America. You cannot have diametrically opposed stuff like that. You can't have separate laws for separate cultures. We have American law that falls under the Constitution, full stop. S2, do you want to comment on Schoolhouse Rock at all?
Well, not Schoolhouse Rock in particular, but yeah, the whole idea. There are places actually that I've heard tell of in New York where they've actually, in certain neighborhoods, where they've actually implemented Sharia law, and that for some reason,
Sorry, how can they do that?
They actually have people that go around with their people and they enforce the Sharia law with their people in these certain pockets. I've heard of this in New York City and a couple of other places too. How they do it, how can they do it? I have no fucking idea. But it's being done and it needs to stop. When you come to this country, you abide by our laws, you abide by our culture. I don't give a shit where you come from. If you come here and you become a naturalized citizen, you're now an American. And these people that are coming over from all of these other countries right now, from Africa, from coming up from Latin America and whatnot, they are bringing almost no skills with them at all. No skills. They have nothing to contribute to the society. They need to be gotten out and send them right back to where they came. And I've said it once and I'll say it again. If the countries don't want to take them back, then we start running a WKRP in Cincinnati turkey throwing contest.
Yeah, right. So here's your Muslim Community Patrol in New York City. It looks suspiciously much like NYPD. And, New York City is the first place I was aware of that was doing this. And of course, you've heard of it as well. This sort of stuff can't be allowed. We can't have separate laws and separate police forces for separate communities inside of America. This is America, and the highest law in the land is the Constitution. And if you don't like that, too bad, so sad. Get the fuck out.
I think the biggest problem with all of this stuff is that there's, just like everything else that's going on right now, there's no consequences for their actions. No consequences whatsoever. You can go out and you can assault somebody. They'll fine. We'll go out and we'll arrest you, but we're going to send you right back out on the street within 5 minutes. No consequences.
So the cover, by the way, for the New York Post today says "Land of the Free Lunch." And that's what's being advertised around the world. And that's why all these shitbags from third world countries are coming here, because, again, our government is under the direct control of our enemies, and we will give them billions of dollars worth of stuff, but we won't give jack shit to our own American citizens. And this is why we've got to get Donald Trump back in power. And we've got to pass laws that are not easily overturned with a stroke of a pen by some future, left-wing group. So let me hit on something here that's related to this topic, and it's very recent and is particular to James and I. So in Pinellas County here in Florida, they arrested 45 looters just after the last hurricane, Milton, for looting private residences where people vacated, businesses, etc. 41 out of the 45 people charged aren't even citizens. These are crimes that should not be committing.
Wasn't one of them wanted for rape as well?
Yes. And I'm sick and tired of hearing Democrat supporters say, well, you know, Americans commit crimes too. You know what? We have enough criminals. We don't need more criminals.
Yeah.
We don't need more innocent people like Lake and Riley murdered by these pieces of garbage from third world countries. That blood is 100% on Obama's hands. And, you know, the mental case Biden and, you know, cackling Kamala as well. These people shouldn't be here. They have no right to be in our country.
I want to know how many of those 45 were TDA, because just before the hurricane, it was put out on the wire that TDA publicly announced that they were going to start looting when the hurricane started while people were evacuating.
And not only that, did you catch this? That TDA members were coming ashore in South Florida during Hurricane Helene because they knew they'd be able to avoid detection because none of the first responders were
exactly. Everyone was busy,
stuff, right? Yeah, I mean, just again, these people don't belong in our country. It doesn't matter that we have criminals. We don't need more criminals. That's such an asinine way of thinking. And here's the next problem: is you end up with these crackpots like Tim Walz, basically saying that if they manage to get installed as the next administration, that they will give amnesty to all of these people. This is as anti-American as it gets.
How do you and Kamala propose to handle border security in a way that balances safety and compassion?
Yeah, we can have it. And this is from the first day in office, President Biden and Vice President Harris proposed things forward. And we know that there's a bipartisan bill that's both tough, needs to be, but also fair. And that bill was crafted with Republicans and Democrats with Border Patrol agents, 1,500 more agents, more equipment on the border to detect fentanyl and other contraband. And then the process of speeding up Department of Justice on some of the asylum claims. That's what needs to be done. Donald Trump has made it clear. He just wants to have it as an issue and not to fix it. And then I think the folks who are here, especially our dreamers, our DACA recipients, pathway to citizenship for folks who are contributing greatly to this country. We can do this. We've done it before.
He's such a lying sack.
Exactly. I mean, the shit that comes out of these fucking people's mouths, it's a hair across my fucking ass.
It's unreal. They are professional liars. So short, sweet, to the point.
You can't load a shotgun, for Christ's sake.
Well, he's had that shotgun since way back when he used to compete in shooting trap and clays.
I'd like to see how many he could hit out of 25.
It's probably like that other clown was standing, you know, at point blank range from steel targets, and of course the lead bounced off and shot one of the reporters. Did you catch that last week?
Did.
I mean, yeah. All right, let's hear what this girl's got to say.
I have never seen a country try so hard to get rid of an ex-president while trying so little to get rid of illegals, drug dealers, or child traffickers.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely puts a fine point on it there, right?
So that was a mic drop.
Yeah, no kidding. I like this here. Read the original tweet. You know, the vibes are, I will crawl through broken glass to vote Trump. Yeah, that seems to be nationwide. And I think the shy Trump voter is mostly a thing of the past. There was a clear shift after the attack in Butler. It boosted people's spirits. And yeah, it absolutely did. So let's hear Dave Chappelle's thoughts on this. Yeah, I absolutely love this. We'll play the whole 1.5-minute video because it's worth watching. Chappelle is just awesome. So let's move on to the next one here. As far as Kamala being scripted, 100% scripted, every word, every action, every performance. This is like really hard to listen to. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard, but it's only 13 seconds long. We can get through it. Never again. Never again. Oh my God. Right. So I'm not stopping on a few here because I'm trying to get us somewhat caught up to our original agenda. This is a prime example of Donald Trump having a big heart. He goes out of his way to reach out to people who've had bad things happen, especially when it's an American who's been killed or murdered by, an illegal who shouldn't be here. The guy doesn't sleep. It's unbelievable, the stamina that he has. What's not unbelievable is just how much he loves the American people. And, God bless him for that. So moving on from there, this is a good quote. I've used the word panic a few times, but the Democrats are in a complete state of panic. Some of them who know full well that Trump will win in a landslide and hopefully, they won't derail it by assassinating him or something like that, that they better learn how to play friends with Trump, because otherwise they're going to get squashed. And I don't know what on earth happened to Fetterman, but he went from being a bumbling fool to having a stroke and coming out pretty hardcore right-wing conservative for a Democrat. And he's more articulate now than he ever was in the past. I mean, I remember when he was running for office, he couldn't string 3 words together. He sounded like a complete babbling fool because of the stroke he'd had. And people in 2020 were saying, why are the Democrats running this guy? He's brain damaged. But something then happened to him after that, and he got his faculties back.
Dude, he was self-proclaimed Antifa.
Correct. I mean, it was insane, right? Another quick video here on Kamala. She's just an idiot.
I think what happened to him after he had his stroke and went to the hospital, I think they had his head surgically removed from his ass. That's what I think.
Yeah, I would buy that. So this is a good one. It's not very long, 12 seconds.
I want to thank the Secretary for your work. This issue of transportation is fundamentally about just making sure that people have the ability to get where they need to go.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like it's, oh God. I mean,
and the wheels on the bus go round and round.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think I've said this before, but she deserved to be swallowed or splattered on the back of somebody's head.
Well, I was going to say,
sorry, she shouldn't have come this far.
Well, I mean, I have a relatively similar comment to make, James. If she couldn't suck a golf ball through a 50-foot chunk of garden hose, she wouldn't be the VP right now.
Oh yeah,
let alone running for office. I mean, it's you want to talk about the ultimate DEI hire, that would be her. So moving along. So this is from the protest this weekend in Great Britain. And I like Radio Genoa, by the way. This guy's hilarious. He always publishes really good content, but they all look the same. And they do. They've all got that glazed over look on their face, and they're brave people with signs saying things like this when they're scared of their own shadows, or they're just completely batshit insane. Here's a report that the Kamala Harris campaign is gripped by fear. Nobody should be even slightly optimistic right now. Anxiety is taking hold. I mean, they can lie all they want, but the fact of the matter is she's a terrible candidate, and Donald Trump has really hit his stride, and he's putting on a class right now on how the art of the deal is done by bringing Bobby Kennedy to the table, bringing Tulsi Gabbard to the table. They don't agree on all the same things, but one thing they do agree on is making America great again. So,
yeah. Have you read Out of the Deal?
I have, yes.
Yeah, it's a fucking good book.
It absolutely is. So, here's one of the cringiest videos that I've seen. This is Gretchen Wilmer and Kamala having a beer at a pub. 2 communists having a beer at a pub, I guess.
Gretchen Whitmer.
Sorry.
And this is the worthwhile use of her time as the VP.
I am having what she's having.
It's an Oberon, and it's made right here in Kalamazoo, which many are calling Kamalazoo. It's yeah. Cheers. Okay, cheers. Great rally. Good. And I mean, and you know what I think?
We'll stop that one there. Let's talk about Michelle Obama's speech here yesterday and how she basically attacks men, especially white men, and blah blah blah.
Another irrelevant dope.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here we go.
We're asking the same thing. Why are we listening to her? Why is anybody? She just used to bang a guy that used to be in charge,
right?
I mean,
so I like this one here. You know, haters will say this is AI, but you know, that's just be this is it can't be AI.
She's putting herself out there fearlessly, facing down even her harshest critics. She's seeking out Republicans to find common ground. And unlike her opponent, she's not ducking interviews or cowering in safe spaces only with fawning audiences. No, she's showing us what a sane, stable leader looks like.
dude, her speaking coach is the same guy that Barack uses. Do you see how even their mannerisms are the same?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, the delivery, everything is identical.
Yeah.
You want to add anything to that? Do you think that was AI, S2? I don't think it was AI. I think that was legit. What do you think?
I really don't have a comment for that. I can't stand her. They all have this frequency of tone that they speak in that just makes me go, ah.
I'm with you 100%. So I'm going to skip a couple links that were in the brief because when I look at them and I consider the content, pretty much guarantee that we would get zapped on YouTube for sure. But let me bring one up here first that speaks to the economy, which is nowhere near as good as what the Democrats would have you believe. So many U.S. stores closing as consumers pull back on spending in Biden-Harris economy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a real thing. Small businesses are not doing well, and it's only a matter of time before the whole thing comes crashing down. But I mentioned this one earlier. Let's hear what Elon has to say as far as citizen journalism is concerned.
It is kind of legacy media because it is from a time when, in order to learn any news, you had to aggregate the news to some central publication, and then some editor would decide what people should hear, and then they'd print the newspaper with like a lot of paper, and then distribute that paper, and that's how you learn things. But you obviously don't need that anymore. You've got the internet, so anyone can learn anything at any time. Yeah, that's why X is the future. It's citizen journalism, where you hear from the people. It's by the people, for the people. That's what it's all about. I think this is a super big deal, and it's absolutely fundamental and transformative that the people actually get to decide the news and what the narrative and what matters, and that the legacy media is basically controlled by a handful of editors-in-chief. That's it. They decide what's going to get published. That's why I really encourage everyone out there to write stuff on the X platform and other platforms too. But citizen journalism is the future, and that's where you get to hear from actual experts in the field, people who are experts in any given industry, and you get to hear the rebuttal. So if somebody says something that's wrong or requires more context, people can add that. X has got community notes, which is great. So take community notes, I think is got a very good batting average. It's not perfect, but it's got a very good batting average. And I, many times I've gotten requests like, can we get rid of this community note? I'm like, no, we cannot. Not even a community note on myself. So with community notes, all the code is open source, all the data is open source, so you can recreate any given community note independently. And that transparency is how you know that it's true, and it's real, and it's honest.
So that was what I was alluding to earlier, as far as Elon essentially saying mainstream media they're toast, man.
You know what the beauty of all of that is? If you think about it at its most basic level, citizen journalism has turned into, or actually I should say, it has reverted back to people having conversations. Now, granted, some of them may be having conversations online, but they're still having conversations nonetheless. And that's something that mainstream media never wanted. This is what we're going to tell you, and this is what you're going to do, and this is what you're going to like, and you're going to like it. It's no longer that way because of this.
Well, I also think it's a modern day equivalent to the, town square.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Everybody would have an opportunity to stand up and make their announcements, and then people could judge whether they thought it was legitimate information or not. So we're a couple hours into this one, and we're going to wrap it up here shortly. As per usual, we've got a number of bullets for our subscribers to act upon to have a positive impact on all this craziness that we've covered tonight. So some of these I've said before, and that's okay. They bear repeating, but I'm going to go through this really quick, and then I'll get input from both of you. Make sure you have a get home bag and plan with multiple routes to get home. My personal opinion is a get home bag is more important than a bug out bag, because most people don't have anywhere to bug out to, and they don't have the skills to pull it off anyway. Make sure the election is too big to rig. Do your civic duty. Make sure you go vote by November the 5th. And if you can take somebody with you who doesn't normally vote, that will essentially be the icing on the cake. Stay on top of recent developments right here on Survival Dispatch News and X in general. Ensure all your self-defense tools are in top-notch conditions. Make sure your optics have batteries in them, those sort of things. Make sure you're protected with the right self-defense coverage. CCW Safe is my choice. You may have your choice. My choice is CCW Safe. Avoid going out alone, especially after dark. Avoid bad areas, especially gas stations in unknown neighborhoods or unfamiliar neighborhoods. Make a mental note of signs that people have out, whether they're supporting Kamala or Trump, because it'll give you a pretty good indication of who you can probably trust and work with if the shit hits the fan versus who you probably don't want to team up with. Report suspicious people ASAP, especially anything to do with this election. Take videos, better than trying to take pictures. You can always get stills, screenshots from a video. Fortify your home. Easy stuff. It's all about delaying people from breaking in. But if the shit hits the fan and people realize that you have food and water and electricity, it's only a matter of time before the bad guys come for it if you're in an urban environment. And have a family home invasion plan, a family plan to rendezvous if the shit hits the fan while people are at work or out otherwise. You have to put the plan in place. You have to do dry runs on the plan and figure out what works and what doesn't work. James, any advice to the Survival Dispatch News audience as far as things that they can do in light of all these crazy things we covered tonight?
The only thing I would do in addition to all of that is, know what your level is from your previous training and whatnot like that. I mean, if you need to move from point A to point B, again, when the shit hits the fan, make sure that you're competent enough to do so. Now, for some people who aren't as experienced or they're not as physically fit or whatever, sometimes it may be just better off to barricade your front door, and any entry points, and wait for a few days for a lot of the panickers to stop, because while there's panickers, there are people who are out there that are going to prey on panickers, and stampede, they're just going to get killed. So sometimes just assess yourself, know yourself, and maybe it's better off to stay put for a little while first. And just ration your food, make sure you can wait it out, and then then start taking to the streets once some of the silliness is gone.
It kind of reminds me of Mike Sterling discussing Baghdad. Basically, when Baghdad fell, people were looting everything. And then within a couple of days, the marauders came out and were assaulting people and taking the stuff they looted. And we had, a huge military presence there. And it took us weeks to restore some element of law and order. We're really no different. The same thing could unfold here. S2, anything you'd like to add?
Get fuel.
Yes.
Keep a couple of 5-gallon cans of fuel stocked up. Top off your gas tanks. Get some PRID or PRIG. Add it to your fuel. Get some octane boosters. Add that to your fuel. That's about all I can say in addition to what you guys have said.
Appreciate it. All right. So patreon.com/survival dispatch. You can sign up for free. You'll have access to about 50% of the information we post there, or you can pay $9.99 a month and get access to all of the content. That includes our brief for every single episode goes up there, 6 to 10 pages long. Typically, there are things in that brief that we don't cover either because of time or because of bullshit rules on some platforms, which is why we blast this out to half a dozen different platforms, because some platforms we can publish stuff and some we can't. And pretty much every morning I get up and there's something going on. We got a strike. We got a copyright violation. There's no such thing as fair use, for example, in YouTube's mind, blah, blah, blah. But patreon.com/survival dispatch. If you want to be part of our Signal group, sign up as an insider for $9.99. Download and install Signal. Fire it up so that it's configured and attached to your phone number. Send an email with your phone number to support@survivaldispatch.com. You'll get an invite to the group. It's not a group that you can search and find and request to join. You have to follow the instructions that I just gave you to a T. If y'all don't mind, before you leave, please mash the thumbs up button. It helps us tremendously with the algorithm. And we're down to the conflicted question and answers for the night. We want to see your answers down below, by the way. So here we go. The collapse of infrastructure causes a war for resources that involves everyone in the country. As gunfights break out, the dead begin to pile up. Gordon has lost many of his friends, yet their families still lived. They would not make it on their own. If you were Gordon, would you embrace the families of your fallen friends and take care of them with your extremely limited time and resources? Or would you leave them on their own, and why? So since James is a guest this evening, we'll give James first crack. What would you do?
So I got a choice between going and catching up with my family or helping the people that are around me.
No, you've got limited resources, and you can either share them with the family of your friends who, lost their life during the SHTF, or you can just cast them aside.
Mate, in that situation, I mean, there's going to be a finite amount of resources, but I think that there'll be, if you're traveling somewhere afterwards to go and catch up with your family, if I'm following this correctly, you can always find more resources. And you don't know what an asset people are going to be. I mean, now, if it's a piece of shit, that's obviously a piece of shit, I don't know, do the rest of the world a favor if you can. But I'd have to be in the situation and to really know what I would do. I think it would come onto a lot of different factors that aren't in the information.
That's two.
I think I would have to assess the capabilities of those people before I would decide whether I wanted to bring them on board or not. I do believe in the saying that there's strength in numbers. However, if the families of all of them weigh 350 pounds and can't do anything but bounce down the road, I'd probably have to say, yeah, you guys go to sleep and take a nap. I'll see you later. That's kind of the way I would have to handle that.
Fair enough. It's not a bad idea to assess them. I would probably lean towards bringing them into my group and trying to teach them the skills that they would need to be productive members of our group. And it sucks that food's in scarce supply, but I think that we would take those people and have them work with us to try and forage food, scavenge food, hunt game, whatever they possibly could. It'd be pretty unique circumstances for me to just tell them, too bad, so sad, you're on your own. I would not be comfortable with doing that. There's always a solution, right? There's always a way to solve this kind of stuff, do the right thing. And I don't think my conscience would let me kick them to the curb like that. Alrighty, that is it for another episode. This was episode number 291 of Survival Dispatch News. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and God bless America.
Well,
it feels like 2008 all over again. The best way to protect your savings is with gold and silver. As the national debt soars past $34 trillion and the banking system wobbles, your financial well-being could be at risk. Precious metals like gold and silver hedge against inflation and dollar devaluation. They're perfect for diversifying your portfolio. With Goldco, it's easy. Get first-class service, step-by-step guidance, and a free wealth protection kit. In just 3 simple steps, you can roll over your 401k or IRA into precious metals, tax and penalty-free. Todd Callender and I chose Goldco because they stand out with over 6,000 5-star ratings, an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, and a highest buyback price guarantee. Don't wait. Secure your financial future. Visit survival.gold or click the link below to get your free 2024 Wealth Protection Kit now. Government agencies have been weaponized against us. The Secret Service reacts too late. The FBI manufactures cases. The ATF targets our firearms, and the FDA screws us to drive big pharma profits. We must support Trump, who literally took a bullet for us, and back independent media like Survival Dispatch News. Now they're aiming to make Black Forest NMN a regulated anti-aging product to drive more profits for big pharma. NMN is the only over-the-counter supplement I've taken that's noticeably increased my energy levels, allowing me to work extreme hours. I've taken almost every OTC supplement over the past 42 years that I've been training, many of them as a world champion powerlifter. Get your NMN before it's too late. Buy 2, get 1 free. Click the link below. Stay alert, stay strong, and stay safe.